Thanksgiving used to be my favorite holiday. No gifts, no pressure, just food and family. Or at least that's what it used to be. Before everything changed. Before the fake smiles, the passive jabs, and the secret I held onto for way too long. Because once I opened that box, I knew there was no closing it. But I wasn't always like this. My name's Colton, I'm 26, and for most of my life, I've played the role of the quiet one. The observer. The one who nods, shrugs, laughs politely, and lets things slide for the sake of peace. Especially when it came to my family. But this past Thanksgiving, let's just say the gloves came off, and not because it was cold. Growing up, I always felt like a background character in my own family. My older sister Jenna, golden child, honor roll, volleyball captain, the whole package. If she sneezed, it was adorable. If I got straight A's, silence. My parents, especially my mom, doted on her like she walked on clouds. And my dad? He mostly stayed quiet, sipping his beer, watching football, and occasionally mumbling, "Don't start drama." I learned early on that blending and kept me out of trouble. So that's what I did. I didn't resent Jenna, at least not at first. She was funny, confident, and honestly, pretty likable. But as we got older, something changed. Maybe it was the way she started mocking my interests. "You still play video games? Aren't you? Like 25. Or how she never missed a chance to remind everyone that I lived in a one-bedroom apartment while she and her fiancé, Daniel, had just bought a starter home in the suburbs. Every family gathering became a performance, and Jenna was always the star. I was just the guy holding the boom mic in the background. This year, our parents decided to do something special for Thanksgiving. No cooking at home. No mismatched Tupperware. No turkey that's slightly dry even after brining. Nope. They made reservations at this upscale country club restaurant that required jackets and had a literal harpist playing in the corner. I'll admit, it was impressive. White linen tablecloths, waiters with white gloves, and a buffet that looked like it had been curated by Gordon Ramsay himself. We were a group of 10, my parents, Jenna and Daniel, our two cousins from mom's side, their parents, Aunt Mel and Uncle Steve, and me. I almost didn't go. I'd had a rough few months, work stress, a breakup, and just general burnout. But my mom insisted. "We're all going to be there, Colton. Don't be the only one missing." So I went. Jacket, tie, the whole bit. I even shaved. As soon as I walked in, I saw the looks. The barely there nods of approval. Jenna said, "Wow, Colton dressed up. Must be a special occasion." It was said with a smile, but I felt the sting. Daniel gave me one of those bro slaps on the back and said, "You clean up okay." I fake laughed. Strike one. We were seated at a long table near the fireplace. The room smelled like roasted garlic, aged wine, and expensive perfume. A waiter came around with a bottle of wine, offering to pour glasses. He started with Jenna and Daniel, then moved down the table, pouring for everyone except me. I didn't even blink. Maybe he missed me, right? I politely flagged him down and asked, "Could I get a glass too?" He hesitated, looked at Jenna, then poured me the tiniest amount I've ever seen in a wine glass. It didn't even reach the curve. Everyone laughed. "Oh, come on, Colton," Jenna smirked. "We don't need you getting wine drunk and spilling your conspiracy theories." I don't even drink that much, by the way. That joke was from 3 years ago when I accidentally ranted about Bitcoin at a family barbecue. Apparently, it's my whole personality now. Anyway, I let it go. Again. I told myself before showing up that I wasn't going to cause problems. Smile. Nod. Let it pass. That's how I've survived for years. But something about that room, about the way they looked at me like I was the family project gone wrong, it started to chip away at me. Then came the buffet. It was an elegant setup. You handed your plate to a server, and they walked down the line with you, placing what you wanted onto your plate. Everything looked amazing. Truffle mashed potatoes, maple glazed carrots, cranberry orange chutney, even deep-fried turkey slices. I was actually getting excited. I stood up with everyone else and joined the short line, chatting with my cousin Dylan about a new Marvel show. When it was my turn, I handed my plate over and started pointing out what I wanted. The server gave me this polite but strained smile. "I'm sorry, sir. I was told to prepare plates only for the family listed on the seating card." I blinked. "What?" He nodded toward Jenna, who was talking with another server. "She said you weren't eating." My heart thudded. "No, I what? I'm part of the family. I'm at the same table." He looked apologetic. "I understand, sir, but I was instructed." Before I could say anything else, Jenna strolled over, arms crossed, fake innocent smile plastered on. Oh no, did we forget to tell you? Mom said you were on some new diet thing. Then she looked at the server. Sorry about the mix-up. He's just being dramatic. The server shrugged and handed me an empty plate. I stood there, holding it like an idiot. Everyone else got their food. I walked back to the table, still holding the plate. Empty. My mom chuckled as I sat down. You didn't want anything? And then, like she'd been waiting to deliver the punchline, she added, maybe you don't need the calories anyway. She said it lightly, like it was nothing. But it hit hard. My weight has fluctuated in the last year. Nothing crazy, but enough for me to be self-conscious about it. And she knew that. Daniel snorted into his wine. Jenna just smiled sweetly and said, we're just being honest, Colton. Honest. That word stuck with me. It tasted bitter. Like burnt coffee. I looked around the table as they all dug into their plates. Talking, laughing, chewing. No one even seemed to care that I didn't have food. No one offered to get me a plate. It was like I wasn't even there. And that's when Uncle Steve raised his glass. To family, he said, a little tipsy already. To togetherness. And to honesty. May we always be honest with one another, even when it's not easy. Everyone murmured their agreement, glasses clinking. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not in an angry, shouting way. Not in a flip-the-table kind of way. No, it was quiet. Controlled. Cold. I picked up my untouched wine glass, stood slowly, and looked directly at Jenna's fiancé. Congrats on the engagement, I said, raising my glass. He looked confused, but smiled politely. Then I turned to Jenna, my voice still calm. Oh, and Jenna? You haven't seen everything yet, have you? Daniel, do you mind showing her your DMs with Emily? Silence. Pure, knife-cutting silence. Daniel's face turned white. Jenna blinked. What? She asked, her voice already sharpening. And then she turned to him. Daniel, what is he talking about? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. That was the moment. The moment the entire evening. No years of swallowing things down, of letting them laugh, letting them talk over me, letting them treat me like a joke, came to a head. I stayed quiet, just sipped my wine, and watched everything start to unravel. And that was the best meal I never ate. For a few long seconds, nobody moved. The clinking of glasses, the hushed murmurs of side conversations, even the background harp music all seemed to disappear as Jenna stared at Daniel like she didn't even recognize him. Her fork hovered inches from her lips, a piece of turkey trembling on it. I watched her eyebrows knit together as if she were trying to process a foreign language. Daniel looked like a deer caught in headlights, eyes wide, lips parted, frozen in place. What DMs? Jenna asked, her voice tight, pitched with confusion and warning. What is he talking about? Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to me. Me, the forgotten brother, the guy they hadn't even fed, and gave me a look I'll never forget. It was a strange cocktail of fear and desperation, as if he was silently pleading with me to undo what I'd just done. His mouth opened and closed like he was trying to conjure up a lie on the spot, but no words came out. Just a weak exhale. Jenna's eyes darted between us, trying to piece it together. Daniel. Who's Emily? That name hit like a slap. Emily. It wasn't just a generic name I pulled out of thin air. It was someone she knew. Someone we all knew. Jenna's best friend since college. The same girl who'd helped plan her engagement party. The girl who'd sobbed during her maid of honor speech rehearsal a few months ago because she was so happy for Jenna. The girl Daniel had been messaging behind her back for the last 5 months. I hadn't planned to drop it like that, not originally. I didn't walk into that restaurant thinking I'd air the dirtiest family laundry in public like a bomb going off. But when they laughed at me for not eating, when they made that comment about, maybe you don't need the calories, something broke open inside me. I think I was tired of being the invisible one. The one they mock, dismiss, or forget. So when Uncle Steve toasted to family honesty, it just came out. And watching Jenna now, confused and vulnerable for the first time in years, I realized I hadn't even scratched the surface. Daniel tried to recover. He chuckled nervously, shaking his head. I don't know what he's talking about. Emily, we've just messaged about the engagement. That's it. Group chats. You've seen those. Jenna wasn't buying it. She pushed her plate away, suddenly pale. Group chats? You're saying Colton is lying? That he made that up for fun? I don't know what his problem is, Daniel muttered. Maybe he's upset no one saved him a plate. My mom let out a sharp exhale through her nose. Colton, she said in that tone, half scolding, half embarrassed. That was uncalled for. We're trying to have a nice family dinner. There it was again. The nice family dinner. The illusion they all clung to like it was sacred. The same one that required me to stay quiet, laugh along, and let the golden child bask in her spotlight while I withered in the wings. I set my wine glass down and leaned back, arms folded. Funny. You didn't think public humiliation was uncalled for when you all laughed about me not getting food. But now that I say something that actually matters, I'm ruining dinner. Don't start, my mom said, glaring now. You've had an attitude all day. No, I haven't, I said calmly. I've had a front row seat to your show. And I've been polite. Even when Jenna lied to the server so I wouldn't get a plate. I didn't lie. Jenna snapped suddenly, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. That was a joke. You're always so sensitive. A joke, I said, eyebrows raised. Then why did the server say you told them I wasn't eating? I watched you do it. Don't gaslight me. She blinked like she'd been slapped. You're unbelievable. No, I said, still calm. What's unbelievable is how far you'll go to embarrass me just so you can stay the center of attention. But I'm not the one hiding things, Jenna. Daniel stood up next. All right, enough, he said loudly. This isn't the place. Then where is the place? I shot back. Because last I checked, your family loves public scenes. My aunt tried to intervene, placing a hand on Jenna's shoulder. Maybe we should all sit down and... No, Jenna said. Her voice shook. Daniel, give me your phone. His eyes widened. What? Give me your phone. Not here, he whispered. Can we just... She held out her hand. His jaw clenched. It's private. The air was sucked out of the room. Everyone watched. No one moved. My dad rubbed his temples. This is ridiculous. You two can argue at home. Colton, apologize. That made me laugh out loud. Apologize? For what? Exposing the cracks in your perfect family dinner. You're always so dramatic, Mom hissed. Always making everything about you. You think just because you're moody and quiet, we owe you something? Grow up. I stared at her for a long time. I think that was the moment the last thread of hope snapped for me. The hope that maybe, deep down, she cared about me the same way she cared about Jenna. No, I said quietly. I don't think you owe me anything. But I also don't think I need to keep pretending like this family treats me with respect. Because you don't. There was silence again. Except now, the harpist had stopped playing. Jenna broke it. You're jealous, she snapped, lip trembling now. You've always been jealous. Because Mom and Dad actually like me. Because I've done something with my life. And because for once, I have something good. And you just couldn't stand it. I tilted my head, watching her. So, I invented your fiancé's cheating because I'm jealous. She hesitated. You twisted something. I don't know what you saw. But Daniel wouldn't cheat on me. Not with Emily. Daniel looked down at his shoes. Oh my God, she whispered. Now everyone was watching him. And then came the final nail in the coffin. He didn't deny it. He didn't speak up. He didn't even defend himself. He just kept staring at the floor like if he stood still long enough, maybe he'd vanish. That was when Jenna broke. She picked up her cloth napkin, threw it on the table, and walked out. No coat. No purse. Just stormed toward the exit. Daniel moved to follow her, but Uncle Steve stopped him with a firm hand on his shoulder. I wouldn't, he said quietly. Daniel sat back down, slowly, like he had no idea what to do anymore. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt something. But mostly, I just felt hollow. Like I'd finally detonated a landmine I'd been sitting on for years. Everyone was still in shock. My mom muttered something under her breath. My dad took a long sip of his wine and refused to look at me. Happy Thanksgiving, I said, getting up. I hope the food was worth it. I turned and left. No coat. No goodbye. Just walked out into the cold November air with nothing but my keys and a hollow chest. But it didn't end there. Because the text started that night. And the real betrayal hadn't even happened yet. When I got home that night, I didn't even bother turning on the lights. I just dropped my keys on the counter, pulled off my dress shoes like they were shackles, and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, still wearing the same button-up shirt they'd all mocked me in hours earlier. My phone buzzed in my pocket, over and over, but I didn't look at it right away. I knew what it would be. Anger, confusion, damage control. Maybe some half-hearted attempt from one of my parents to sweep it all under the rug. I wasn't ready to face any of that. Not yet. Outside my window, The street was quiet. Dead leaves scraping along the pavement, a few porch lights still on, the faint whir of someone's heating unit kicking in down the block. It should have felt like peace. But all I felt was shame. Not because of what I'd done, but because of how loud I'd had to become just to be heard. That's what hit me the hardest. Not the confrontation, not the fallout, but the fact that it took a public detonation, an emotional ambush at a white tablecloth dinner, just to make anyone in my family acknowledge my existence. And even then, it wasn't about me. It was about Jenna. It was always about Jenna. When I finally checked my phone, I had 16 unread messages and 4 missed calls. The first text was from my mom. "Mom, you embarrassed everyone tonight. I hope you're happy." The second was shorter. "Dad, next time, stay home." The third hit different. "Jenna, I hate you. I hope that was worth it." And then there were a few from numbers I didn't recognize at first. Turns out one was Daniel, trying to play victim. "Daniel, you ruined my life, man. We were going to work through it. Why would you do that?" I didn't answer any of them. I turned my phone off, tossed it face down on my desk, and spent the next few hours just sitting, thinking, listening to the old radiator knock like it always did when the heat kicked in. Thanksgiving was over. But the fallout? That was just beginning. The days that followed were strangely quiet. I kept waiting for more backlash, but after that initial flood of messages, the silence set in. No apologies. No explanations. No acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, I'd been right to speak up. It was like I'd been cut out completely. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't reach out to apologize or clarify or make peace like I usually would. I didn't play the role of the quiet, forgettable son who absorbs the blows and keeps smiling. I just existed. For myself. That's not to say it didn't hurt. It did. A lot. There were nights I lay in bed wondering if I'd overreacted, if I'd sabotaged what little place I had left in the family. There were moments, usually around 2 a.m., when I second-guessed everything. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was too sensitive, too bitter, too self-righteous. But then I'd remember the look on Jenna's face when she realized Daniel was guilty. I'd remember how none of them even offered me food that night. How they all laughed. How they always laughed. And I'd remind myself, I didn't burn that bridge. They lit the match. I just stopped pretending it wasn't on fire. About a week after the dinner, I decided to take time off work. Just a week. My boss was surprisingly supportive, probably because I'd rarely ever used PTO before. I think he thought I was finally taking a vacation or going on some spiritual retreat. But all I did was stay home. I cooked for myself, cleaned my apartment top to bottom, went on long walks through my neighborhood, wrapped in a scarf and a heavy coat, watching leaves fall like pieces of the past. I didn't speak to many people, but I listened. To myself, mostly. And that's when something strange started to happen. I stopped feeling guilty. Not all at once, but piece by piece. It was like someone had lifted a weight from my chest I didn't know I'd been carrying for years. I wasn't constantly measuring my worth against Jenna's success. I wasn't bracing for the next family dinner where I'd be the punchline. I wasn't trapped in their narrative anymore. For once, my story was mine. And it made me realize how much of my life I'd spent trying to prove I was enough to people who never really saw me in the first place. I'd been waiting for approval that was never coming. So I stopped waiting. With no family obligations and a clear calendar, I threw myself into work. Not just clocking in, clocking out, but really working. I picked up extra projects, started mentoring some of the junior analysts, and even helped restructure part of our outdated reporting system. I didn't do it to impress anyone. I did it because I finally had energy that wasn't being drained by guilt or resentment. And people noticed. My manager pulled me aside after a team meeting one day and said, "You've been killing it lately. Whatever changed, keep it up." A few weeks later, I got an offer to lead a new analytics initiative with a bonus attached. It wasn't just more money. It was trust, leadership, recognition. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the loud, braggy kind, but the quiet, internal kind that says, you did this. You earned this. And no one else can take it from you. That same week, I started going back to the gym. Just casually at first. 30-minute sessions. Cardio, a few weights. Nothing dramatic. But something about moving my body, building strength, my own strength, became addictive. I even reconnected with an old friend from college, Liam, who lived across town. We drifted after graduation, But he messaged me out of the blue after seeing a photo I'd posted, rare for me, of a homemade meal I'd cooked. We grabbed coffee, talked for hours, laughed about old professors and weird roommates. And when I told him about Thanksgiving, he didn't judge me. He didn't say, maybe you should call her. He just said, good. About time someone said something. I didn't realize how badly I'd needed that. The real turning point, though, came when I got a call from Emily. Yes, that Emily. I almost didn't pick up when I saw her name. My stomach twisted with anxiety, unsure of what she wanted. But I answered. Colton. Her voice was quiet. Hey, I said. Didn't expect to hear from you. I wanted to say thank you, she said. That threw me. For what? For telling the truth. For saying what I couldn't. She told me everything. That she and Daniel had been talking for months. That it started harmless, venting about wedding stress, joking around. But then it shifted. Late-night messages. Emotional confessions. And eventually, one night, something more. She said she ended it immediately after. Blocked him. Felt disgusted with herself. I told Jenna, she whispered. The next day, actually. But she didn't believe me. I felt the air leave my lungs. She said I was jealous. That I was trying to sabotage her relationship. She cut me off. Uninvited me from the bridal shower. Told everyone I was lying. Jesus, I muttered. So when you said something, it was like being seen again. Like someone finally believed me. I didn't know what to say. I'd assumed Emily had kept the secret. That she'd been complicit. But now I realized she'd been discarded too. Just like me. We talked for another half hour. Not just about Daniel, but about everything. About what it's like to be painted as the villain for speaking up. About how family loyalty often means shutting your mouth, no matter how bad things get. When we hung up, I sat there for a while, just breathing. And for the first time since that awful dinner, I didn't feel alone. I didn't speak to Jenna for weeks. She didn't reach out. Neither did my parents. But word got back to me, through my cousin Dylan, mostly. He told me Jenna had moved back into my parents' house temporarily, that the engagement was officially off, that Daniel had tried to show up at her job with flowers and got escorted out by security. Karma, I guess. Dylan also told me something else. Your mom's telling people you ruined Thanksgiving on purpose, he said during a call one night. Says you've always been bitter, that you wanted to break them up. I didn't react. Not right away. I think part of me expected it. She's spinning it hard, man. Saying you made it all up. I almost laughed. Sounds about right. But it didn't sting the way it used to. I didn't spiral. I didn't feel like calling to defend myself. I just let it wash over me. Because deep down, I knew something now. I don't need to prove anything to them anymore. Not my worth. Not my intentions. Not my truth. Let them spin whatever version makes them sleep at night. I knew what I did. And why I did it. And that was enough. By mid-December, the air had changed. Literally, snow blanketed the sidewalks. The city buzzed with twinkling lights and fake cheer, but also emotionally. I wasn't the same Colton I had been on Thanksgiving Day. Not even close. Something had cracked open that night, and instead of patching it up and retreating back into my quiet, agreeable shell like I always had, I let the fracture spread. I let it change me. And what surprised me most was how good that felt. I wasn't acting out of bitterness anymore. I wasn't replaying old slights in my head or trying to win their approval. I was building something. Slowly, quietly, steadily. A version of me that didn't flinch every time someone said family, like it was a weapon. A version that didn't equate peace with silence or respect with obedience. But even as I focused on moving forward, I couldn't ignore one thing. They were still talking about me. Dylan kept me in the loop. He and I had started texting more often, and after a few late-night conversations, I realized he wasn't as tight with the rest of the family as they thought. He'd been riding the line for years, laughing along, playing neutral, but deep down, he'd never quite bought the Jenna is a saint narrative either. She's unraveling, he told me one night over the phone. Still furious at you, obviously, but she's taking it out on everyone else. Mom, Dad, me, even your mom. I raised an eyebrow. My mom. Yeah. Apparently, she's mad your mom didn't warn her about Daniel. Says she should have known something was off. I actually did laugh at that. So now mom's the scapegoat? Guess it's your turn to be the golden child, he joked. I doubted that. Still, what caught my attention wasn't Jenna's tantrums. It was something Dylan said near the end of the call, almost offhand. She's planning something. I don't know what. But she told Aunt Mel she's going to put you in your place. That phrase stuck with me. Put me in my place. As if the moment I stepped out of the little corner they built for me, the quiet, overlooked, doormat sun, I became a threat. It didn't surprise me that Jenna wanted to retaliate. What surprised me was how unbothered I was by it. Because for the first time, I had options. Around this time, Emily and I started talking more. Not in a romantic way. Just honest, real conversations between two people who had both been made to feel disposable by the same toxic circle. She'd moved back to her hometown temporarily, trying to recalibrate her life, and confessed she'd been in therapy for the first time since college. I realized I don't know how to say no, she admitted during one of our calls. Not to Jenna. Not to anyone. I let people walk all over me because I thought that's what being a good friend meant. I understood that better than I wanted to. We talked a lot about how manipulation can be dressed up as love, how families sometimes use guilt as currency, how Jenna was a master at both. She gets away with everything because no one wants to deal with the fallout, I said once. She's a tyrant in pearls, Emily replied dryly. But she cries when she doesn't get her way, and suddenly everyone's bending over backward to comfort her. She wasn't wrong. What started as shared venting turned into something more deliberate. We started comparing stories. Times Jenna twisted the truth, lied to cover her tracks, gaslit people when she was cornered. There were so many. And that's when Emily said something that made me sit up straight. She's still messaging Daniel. I blinked. Wait, what? Emily's voice tightened. He reached out again. Told me Jenna asked him to clear the air so you'd look like a liar. She wants him to say the messages were taken out of context. That I came on to him. She's rewriting the story. That didn't shock me. But it did clarify something. Jenna wasn't just angry. She was strategizing. She was going to try and flip the narrative. Make me the villain. Paint Emily as the jealous friend. And Daniel? He'd play along if it meant crawling back into Jenna's graces. It was the same script as always. Jenna controls the story, and anyone who questions it gets cast as the problem. Not this time. This time, I was going to write my own ending. I didn't want to fight dirty. That's never been my style. But if Jenna was going to try and torpedo my reputation, I wasn't going to sit back and take it either. I had something she didn't. Proof. And the one person who could back it all up? Emily. She still had the screenshots. The original messages. Not just the explicit ones, though those were damning, but the manipulative ones too. The late night, I miss talking to you texts. The don't tell Jenna, she gets jealous ones. The emotional grooming. The breadcrumbing. I asked her, cautiously, if she'd ever consider making them public. She hesitated. I don't want to blow things up more than they already are. But if Jenna tries to smear either of us, yeah, I won't stay silent. That was all I needed to hear. I wasn't planning a scorched earth revenge plot. This wasn't about destroying Jenna. This was about protecting myself. And the way I saw it, if she wanted to play games with reputations, I needed to be ready to counter every lie with cold, hard evidence. So I started collecting receipts. I went back through years of texts, photos, group chats. Times she'd thrown me under the bus. Times she'd manipulated our parents. Times she'd humiliated me in front of relatives. I wasn't doing it to be petty. I was doing it to remember. To stop gaslighting myself. To build a map of the years I'd spent being invisible, minimized, mocked. I made a folder. Literally. Labeled it for when they lie. And I filled it. Not just with Emily's screenshots, but with my own voice. I started journaling. Recording voice notes. Documenting how their behavior had shaped me, hurt me, erased me. Not for revenge. For clarity. Because I'd spent most of my life doubting my own experiences. Telling myself it wasn't that bad. That I should be grateful I even had a family. But now I saw it clearly. And the more I saw, the less afraid I became. Then came the Christmas group chat. It popped up on a Wednesday afternoon. I was sitting at my desk when my phone buzzed and I saw it. Holiday dinner planning. Created by Mom. Members, me, Jenna, Dylan, Dad, Aunt Mel, Uncle Steve, cousins, etc. I actually laughed out loud. They really thought we could just sweep it all under the rug again. I didn't respond. Just watched the messages roll in. MOM. We'll be hosting this year since Jenna is staying with us for the holidays. MOM. Traditional dinner, 6 p.m. Please be on time. MOM. Everyone bring one dessert. Colton. Maybe something light this year? There it was. Even now, after everything, they still couldn't help themselves. A passive jab about my weight. A reminder that I wasn't really welcome. Jenna chimed in a few messages later. Jenna, let's keep this drama free, okay? We've all had a rough few weeks. I think it's time we move on. I stared at that message for a long time. Move on. That's what abusers always want, isn't it? Not accountability. Not reflection. Just amnesia. Let's pretend the house fire was just a warm night. Let's pretend the lies were just jokes. Let's all play nice again so they can keep control. I wasn't going. But I wasn't going to just skip it either. Because if Jenna was trying to reclaim her image at Christmas dinner, I had a feeling she wouldn't stop there. She wanted me quiet. She wanted Emily erased. She wanted her spotlight back, polished and untouched. So I started writing something. Not a manifesto. Just a clear, well-organized document laying out everything. The messages, the manipulation, the lies. Not to shame her, but to protect myself. Because if she came for me, if she twisted the narrative, I wanted to be ready. Dylan offered to help. He'd been growing more and more disillusioned with the family dynamic, and even confessed that Jenna had tried to get him to talk to me and mediate things. She's trying to make me into her mouthpiece, he said, disgusted. I thanked him, but told him I didn't need mediation. I needed boundaries. I told him I wasn't coming to Christmas, that I wished him well, but I wasn't going to play the game anymore. And then, just in case, I sent him a backup of the file I created. If anything happens, I said, you'll know the truth. He promised he wouldn't share it unless necessary. But something told me we'd need it sooner than I thought. Because Jenna wasn't done yet. And this time, neither was I. The snow was coming down heavy on Christmas Eve. The kind of thick, sound-muffling flurry that made the entire world feel like it was holding its breath. From the window of my apartment, I could barely make out the cars on the street below. Just blurred headlights moving like ghosts behind a curtain of white. I had no decorations up. No tree. No scented candles or warm cocoa mugs or classic carols playing in the background. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel bad about it. No guilt. No nagging voice in the back of my head telling me I was missing something important. I was exactly where I needed to be. Alone. Peaceful. Free. My phone buzzed at 6:04 p.m. Right on schedule. The Christmas dinner at my parents' house was officially underway. I didn't need to be there to know how it was going. I could picture it all in vivid detail. My mom flitting around the table, offering refills and passive-aggressive compliments. My dad already one glass of wine too deep. Jenna wearing something red and expensive, holding court with the ease of someone who thinks they've already won the war. I could also imagine the stories she was telling. How I'd gone off the rails. How Emily had made up everything because she was jealous. How Daniel had been emotionally manipulated by two unstable people. It was all predictable, all scripted. Jenna's specialty. But she'd miscalculated one very important thing. This time, I wasn't playing defense. This time, I brought my own story to tell. Dylan had texted me the day before, warning me that Jenna was planning something for the dinner. She wants to make a speech about family healing. Says she's going to clear the air and set the record straight. Translation: she was going to reframe Thanksgiving as some kind of hysterical overreaction and paint herself as the misunderstood peacemaker. She's already told half the cousins that Emily was in love with Daniel, Dylan added. She even told Aunt Mel that you were unwell lately, that you fabricated the whole thing because you're lonely. It didn't surprise me, but it did confirm what I already suspected. So I gave Dylan the green light. He'd offered a week earlier to share the file I'd compiled if it ever came to that. I told him to hold it. Wait, let Jenna show her hand first. Now she had. And the moment she opened her mouth to rewrite history in that dining room, he'd be ready. 6:27 p.m. I got a one-word text from Dylan. Now, my heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. I just opened my laptop, clicked on the folder labeled For When They Lie, and double-checked that everything was there. Then I sent the email. One file. One message. Subject: let's be honest this time. 2. Family group email. Attachments: truth.pdf. Merry Christmas. Since Jenna's making a speech about honesty, I thought I'd contribute something of my own. No drama. No spin. Just receipts. Colton. And then, I logged out. I didn't wait for responses. I didn't refresh to check who'd opened it. I didn't brace for impact. Because I'd already survived the worst part. Being ignored, dismissed, and lied about for years. This wasn't revenge in the dramatic, movie-style way. This was reclamation. And I felt calm. Later that night, I turned my phone back on. The notifications were something. 17 texts. 4 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 2 new emails. But the one that stood out most was from Emily. Emily, holy crap, they're imploding. Dylan sent me screenshots. And boy, did he ever. The group chat had exploded after my email hit. First came the silence. Then Jenna's panicked reply. Jenna, are you kidding me? You seriously stored all this? What kind of psycho are you? Then my mom chimed in. MOM, this is disgusting, Colton. It's Christmas. And Dylan, bless him, finally spoke up. Dylan, no. What's disgusting is that he had to document this at all because no one ever believed him. Then the cousins joined in. One of them, Kayla, posted a screenshot of a text Jenna had sent her weeks ago, where she called Emily a pathetic homewrecker and accused me of being mentally unstable. Another cousin said, this makes way too much sense. Honestly, Jenna, this isn't the first time you've pulled something shady. Jenna went silent after that. And that silence? That was louder than anything she could have said. Later, I'd find out from Dylan that the fallout was nuclear. Uncle Steve and Aunt Mel left early. My dad didn't speak for most of the night. My mom spent the rest of dinner trying to play mediator, saying, let's not pick sides, to which Kayla replied, that's easy to say when you've always been on hers. And Jenna? Apparently, she left the table crying, said she was being ganged up on. No one followed her. No one comforted her. For once, the room didn't orbit around her meltdown. It just kept spinning without her. Over the next few days, the dust settled. I didn't hear from my parents. No apology. No outrage. Just radio silence. But I did get texts from 3 different cousins, all saying some version of the same thing. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You didn't deserve how you were treated. Thank you for standing up for yourself. You inspired me. Those hit harder than I expected. So did the one from Dylan. Dylan, you didn't just change things for you, man. You changed the whole dynamic. For the first time ever, people are actually questioning the system we all grew up in. That made me pause. Because he was right. This wasn't just about a cheating fiancé or a bad Thanksgiving. It was about the quiet kid who never spoke up finally saying, enough. It was about the scapegoat setting the record straight. It was about truth, raw and inconvenient and powerful, finally getting its moment. I didn't hear from Jenna for a while, but eventually, she broke the silence. It came in the form of a message request on Instagram, of all places. Jenna, you think you won. Congrats. You humiliated me. I hope it was worth it. No apology. No remorse. Just another attempt to reframe the story. I didn't respond. Because there's no point trying to reason with someone who only sees themselves as the victim. Instead, I blocked her. And with that, the last chain was gone. By New Year's, I was a different man. Not because I'd burned bridges, but because I'd walked away from them. I started the year with new routines, new boundaries, and, for the first time, new self-respect. Emily and I kept in touch, and though we both agreed we weren't looking for anything romantic, the connection we shared was real, supportive, grounded. It reminded me that not all relationships had to be defined by old roles and unspoken rules. Some could be chosen, built, grown. I also started seeing a therapist, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand the patterns that had shaped me. I wanted to break them, not pass them on someday. And little by little, I found myself again. Not the Colton they tried to shape, but the Colton I'd hidden for years. The one who saw through the lies. The one who spoke truth. The one who, when finally pushed too far, rose. Not with fire and fury, but with calm, with clarity, with power. Months later, I ran into my mom at a grocery store, completely by accident. She looked older, tired. She hesitated when she saw me. Colton, she said quietly, like the name tasted foreign on her tongue. Hey, I said simply. She looked like she wanted to say something more, maybe even apologize. But then her lips pressed into that familiar tight smile, and she said, you look good. I nodded. I am. And I meant it. Then I walked away, leaving her in the frozen foods aisle, staring after me. She didn't call out. She didn't follow. Because she knew. The Colton they used to dismiss was gone. And in his place stood a man they could no longer control. A man who no longer needed their approval. A man who had learned. The best kind of revenge is living a life so full, so true, and so unapologetically your own, that they can't twist it. They can only watch. And I let them.